Welcome back to Michael Coren. That's torture sorted out in Afghanistan. And, you know, we could always do a full show with so many subjects, the gift that keeps giving about Afghanistan and Iraq. I'm not sure if there's always too much point. Paul Fromm, you might not know him. He's sort of part of the, I've got to be relatively careful here, but people have been accused of Holocaust denial or neo-Nazism. He certainly went to some Heritage Front functions, one of which there was an Adolf Hitler party, birthday party. Well, who doesn't attend those sort of things? He was a teacher. He lost his job as a teacher. He went to a meeting to try and be reinstated. He was roughed up by some Jewish Defense League members. Well, if you play by those rules, it's going to happen to you. But it's the issue of Holocaust denial, I think. I interviewed him the other night, and he's not the real person. I'm not that interested in him. But did the Holocaust happen? He said, I don't know, I wasn't there. That alone is why you shouldn't be teaching. You're not qualified. But do we obsess about... Okay, let me be absolute, and probably get lots of complaints. Do we obsess about the Holocaust and Holocaust denial? It happened, don't forget it, it was vile. But I mean, is there too much coverage, museums and discussions and movies, and if people deny it, I mean, not here, but in many countries, arrest them, put them in prison? I mean, it was quite a long time ago.
It was, and that's why I think you call it obsession. I think that it's a good thing that it's raised and that we have these laws around it. Think of the horror of what happened then. Mm-hmm. And the reality is that we can't forget. Sure. And because it happened a long time ago, if we don't make a point of catching every single, if possible, every single situation like this and dealing with it, then it will be forgotten. It could be repeated. So I don't think we're obsessed.
There have been attempts to repeat.
I mean,
well,
my feel
against different people.
Against different people,
and we
exactly.
show very little.
And that's where I was saying next. That's the next problem is that it does happen, and we focus in one area.
I mean,
Let's expand.
Is there a difference between forgetting and obsessing? And I say this, you know, Jewish father, family from Poland. I mean, I have some right to speak out on this. Don't forget, but don't. I mean, yes, to a degree, constantly refer that another documentary, another movie, another book. I don't quite understand that.
Well, and you know, I don't think you can produce as many as you want, and it's all very good. I think our big problem is that we obsess over the Holocaust to the exclusion of learning about other things that are happening in our own times. For example, any school child who has gone through typical education can tell you all of the tropes, if you want to call them, of you know, the voyage from the ghetto to the concentration camps. They can name the camps. I was reading today an account of native residential schools, which are by no means comparable, but 100,000 natives over a period of 100 years who were taken away from their homes by the Canadian government, by the church in Canada. We know nothing about this. We never study it. This is something our own people did. I think we ignore other genocides. And if we're going to say never again, then we have to say not only never again to the Jews, but never again to any other population.
Quite so. And the refusal to refer to what happened in Rwanda as genocide, because that would mean intervention. Yeah. And a form of genocide denial, not exact genocide, but in the Soviet Union, Ukrainians, I'm surprised Ukrainians aren't more angry that the forced starvation, the entire people was treated so terribly.
As long as people are being slaughtered, as they were in Rwanda, that's genocide. And if we're going to pick over words, that would be owing to international commitments, I think that's shameful.
Yeah. No, I think Marilyn and John both make very valid points.
Oh, let's move on then.
I would say, and comparing apples with apples instead of going into the residential school issue, very little is said about the Armenian genocide of almost 100 years ago, something that Turkey still denies even happened, which is...
Canada effectively denied it in that for the longest time, because CANDU reactors were being purchased by the Turks.
True.
There's huge hypocrisy there. But I would say the difference, and something that hasn't come up in terms of the Holocaust, is the fact that you see how the world has changed in recent years, where there are actual state-sponsored Holocaust denial.
There's one.
Well, there was one. But let's not forget, in Durban, South Africa, the United Nations, when they had that supposed conference on racism, which just turned into an anti-Semitism fest.
But it was certainly Israel bashing, and part of that was anti-Semitism, yeah.
Huge.
I don't think there was Holocaust denial so much there, but certainly in Tehran, what happened was disgraceful, yeah.
And right now, we do have a state in the Middle East that has said that one nuclear bomb will solve the Middle East problems. Hamas translation. We drop it on Israel, wipe the Jews and Israel off the face of the map, and problem solved. So in that context, I think it's very important to remind people what happened. Because, Michael, in 1930s Germany...
Why remind people of what happened? Why not worry about it happening now? This is an immediate, real-world problem.
Because they're interconnected, John. I would say that if you went to German Jews in the 1930s, early 1930s, and said, you know what, in a few years you're going to be rounded up on rail cars and sent to concentration camps and gassed and starved, they would have believed that men from Mars would land in Berlin before that would happen.
Yeah,
it was absolutely unthinkable.
Yep.
And I see this kind of, I know a lot of Jews that look at 2006, 2007, very reminiscent of 1938. Well, you can shake your head, Michael, but the body of evidence proves otherwise.
What was the body of evidence? What body of evidence? Point to it.
I just gave two examples.
You got one rogue state run by an idiot.
What was the reaction, though? But what was the world reaction? Even in Iran is Persia, but in the Arab world, I read many editorials in translation in Arab newspapers, by no means friendly to Israel, that said this is appalling, this is an embarrassment to Muslim people. There is, the usual suspects, rah-rah for Ahmadinejad, but and even within his own country, embarrassment. If other countries have been ambivalent, not sure about that. No, there was universal condemnation, even from people who were not particularly friendly to Israel or the Jews, but they were embarrassed by that conference. Let's not pretend this was typical.
No, but Michael, the big difference here is that it's one thing for a nut job like Ernest Zundel to spout anti-Semitism and deny the Holocaust. It's quite another thing when the nut job is on his way to developing a nuclear bomb and has publicly stated on the record that he's going to drop it on Israel.
And you think that the Americans should go and drop a nuclear bomb on the Iranian people?
Well, actually,
I mean,
a tactical nuclear strike to take out their infrastructure? Absolutely. Absolutely, Marilyn. But you have said... Yes, a small-scale tactical nuclear strike to take out their infrastructure. Absolutely, I agree with that. We've had this discussion. You've said, sit down with the Iranians. And I said, and if discussions and diplomacy don't work, then what do? Do you bomb them? And you said no.
No,
so what do you do?
Not go in with a nuclear bomb. You're saying that it would be the Iranians, and we all agree it was abominable, what was said. But that... they shouldn't be threatening to bomb Israel. You're sitting here and saying that, and wipe out Israel. All agreed that it's okay, and there's no such thing as a small tactical nuclear bomb.
Of course there is.
Not the aftermath. It might not kill that many people when it first drops.
What would you do if objective sources, I don't mean Israel or the United States, but if objective sources say Iran within three months will have nuclear weapons?
Well, for one thing, Israel's a nuclear power, so maybe Israel can do something about it.
Yeah.
Well, it probably would be Israel that would do something about it. And Israel's had them for some time.
But based on the intelligence we've been fed over the last few years, I barely believe anything the Americans would tell me about what's going on in any country in the world.
And if you're wrong on this hunch, John, I guess, and Israel does get a nuclear bomb dumped on it.
Apocalyptic in your world.
Yeah, because I'm going by history, John.
Yeah,
but what are you going to say? Oh, stuff
happens? The interesting thing is that diplomacy seems to often be the solution. I'm sure a couple of weeks ago you were probably screaming and yelling about how Britain had to go to war against Iran. It all came to a quiet end with some negotiations. Nothing.
Pathetic end. It was humiliating.
A humiliating end for Britain. That's what happens when you mess in the Middle East.
And the empowerment of Iran. On this one, though, I think diplomacy is beginning to show some results with Iran. I don't want war, but to defend people, sometimes war is necessary.
Sure.
But here,
but not everything is World War II.
I agree with you. I agree with you.
But speaking of Britain and force, I would just wish all my British friends that today is the 25th anniversary of the Falklands surrendering and the Falklands conflict. So thank you, Argentina. Yeah, today. That's when it gave it. So it kind of worked out well there, didn't it, John? When we went over to the Falklands, right?
Apples and oranges.
Apples and oranges. It's all World War II and the Falkland Islands.
I'm sure. I'm demonstrating here's a true democracy that stood up for their people, their territory, and it worked.
Almost every month we have some international crisis that hawks like you would start sending in the soldiers and the guns. Send in the diplomats, and 9 out of 10 times, as a matter of fact, 98 out of 100 times, you settle it without any dead bodies.
And I'm agreeing with you on that. But sometimes...
Are you still backing the U.S. war in Iraq?
I am indeed.
It's been such a smash.
You know what? I love it when they get along. Back in a few moments after these quite superlative commercials. Watch them, they pay the bills. Do not go away. A lot more to come.